I thought, okay, let's just scrap that. I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to improvise and take my own advice.
Welcome to Quirky French Podcast, the podcast that helps you speak more confidently, feel more focused, and be more in control of your French learning journey. Prêt? C'est parti!
Salut! Welcome to episode 12 of Quirky French Podcast, the podcast where I'm going to teach you everything I know to reach fluency and become confident in French. I'm Naima from quirkyfrench.com, and in today's episode, I want to talk to you about failure. I'm just going to discuss a couple of things to help you kind of redefine failure and to help you explore the concept. Think about how this applies to you, to your fear of speaking, and, you know, how this impacts your learning journey, how it has been impacting your learning until now. So if you get nervous when you speak French, if you're scared of making mistakes, if you're worried that you look like a fool, then you're going to, you might want to listen to today's episode because perhaps you're a little bit too hard on yourself. Just please take the next few minutes to listen to this podcast because today I want to help you kind of learn to fail brilliantly. First of all, a little disclaimer. I've got a little bit of noise going on in the background. There's quite a lot of wind. I'm recording this in the middle of, the very stormy weekend. We had Storm Malik. There's still quite a lot of background noise. I don't know if you can hear that. And also, I'm doing a bit of a different format today because I usually write a lot of my content because it's all in English and because I'm pretty insecure about my English. I tend to write my script, which this is how I do it. And the truth is, I've actually recorded this episode beforehand about an hour ago, the written down version of it. And I kept on making mistakes. And, towards the end of the episode, I just felt like it was serendipitous. And as much as I was recording an episode about failure and mistakes, I was going through, the same issue. And I thought, okay, let's just scrap that. I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to improvise and take my own advice. It's okay to make mistakes and it's completely normal. And instead of re-recording and having something perfectly written out for me to read out loud, I'm just going to try and just improvise and just be myself. And if I make mistakes, then, it's okay. But yeah, that was my little disclaimer because this is not my usual format. And I don't know how well I'm going to speak. I'm probably going to make a lot of mistakes, but, and that's fine. So what I wanted to say about today's episode, I've got 2 quirky tips for you. The first tip is to redefine what it means to make mistakes. It's really damaging, and it is a misconception to think that in order to learn well, you need to make the least amount of mistakes that you can. It is really hurting your learning and hurting your confidence. I mean, sure, perhaps you can learn without making any mistakes along the way. But how far is that going to take you, really? How much progress are you going to make? And how much time is that going to take, really? So you could perhaps learn without making any mistakes, but I don't know if that's the most effective way to learn. And so I want to offer you a different perspective about making mistakes. The first thing, of course, is to allow yourself to make mistakes, to be comfortable with that idea, but also to aim for mistakes, to want to make mistakes, basically, and to look at the mistakes you make as valuable tools and lessons, really. It is kind of a cliche, but mistakes really are the best lessons and the best resources that you can use to learn. They're more effective than any lesson, any lesson that you can take with a tutor or even myself, because it's your mistake and it's on your own path, in your own experience. So yes, they are actually really valuable, and they are for sure, like stepping stones to reaching your goal and to your success. It's a little bit like if you play a video game, if you're a gamer, you may have played a video game and put the difficulty level, you've set it to easy. You start to play and then you realize that it's super boring and really uneventful. And so because it's boring, you decide that you, set the difficulty to, difficult. So that's when it becomes interesting, challenging, and rewarding. You can't get anything, you can't get that satisfaction and that feeling of reward without having that challenge. So you have to experience the mistakes. And it's exactly the same thing when it comes to learning. So, don't be afraid of raising the bar. You could, progress without making any mistakes, but how much progress are you really going to make? So that's the first tip. Just rethink what it means to make mistakes. And then my other tip is to practice failing as much as possible. And it might sound counterintuitive, but, instead of trying to do everything in your power to avoid failing and to avoid making mistakes, you could look at failing as a positive thing. What if failing became not only okay, but a goal? But yeah, okay, let's talk about what failing is first. First of all, failing and the concept of failure is only a mental construct. It doesn't even mean the same for everyone. Failing is something that we experience inside. It's not an objective, tangible thing. It's really about what you experience, a mental construct. And you're never failing until you actually tell yourself that you are failing. And so it's really important to let this sink in and to really realize what that means and how powerful this is actually in your learning. Because one person, you, for example, you could be making a lot of mistakes in French, and you could tell yourself that you're failing, that you're not progressing, that, you're not going as fast and getting to your goal as quickly as you hoped you would. While another learner could be making the exact same mistakes, perhaps even more mistakes than you, but they could tell themselves that, they are learning, that they're experimenting, that they are figuring things out. And because they've got a different relationship to making mistakes, they also have a different relationship to that concept of failure and failing. And having a different relationship to failure really has such a powerful impact on the overall outcome and your likelihood of reaching your goal. Failing only becomes a reality when you tell yourself that you're not good at French, or that you're never going to get there. All of those intrusive thoughts that make you progressively, perhaps without even realizing, kind of quit or give up. And so in a way, there's two types of failures. One that you want to practice as much as possible, and the other one that you really want to avoid. Failing because you're practicing, you're trying to have a conversation, and, it's not easy. You make a lot of mistakes, you get stuck, your mind goes blank, you freeze, it's painful, it's frustrating, it's difficult. That's the good kind of failing, because you're learning, you're putting yourself out there, you're getting outside of your comfort zone. But if you get so nervous or overwhelmed or feeling so negative about yourself and feeling so negative about your learning journey and yourself as a learner that you end up avoiding conversations altogether. Well, that's the wrong kind of failing. Failing because you avoid the discomfort is the bad kind of failing. And so in the first case, when you quote unquote fail, it actually brings you one step closer to your goal. Whereas in the second situation, failing actually pushes you away from success. So think about that and think about those two perspectives and those two ways to look at failing. How do you want to fail? Decide and go for it. So that's it for today. I just wanted to offer a new perspective on, that concept of failure and making mistakes. And, just for you to think about it. It has been, even for me, it has been a bit of a challenge recording this episode because I'm kind of, because it's not scripted, so it's a little bit harder for me. And I know, the episode is going to be jammed and full of mistakes, but yes, that's just it. It's probably going to be, it's probably going to show you that my English is far from perfect. Even though I probably made mistakes in previous episodes as well, even though I scripted it and proofread it as much as I could. But it is good practice for me as well to kind of improvise. In future episodes, though, we'll explore this concept a little bit further because in today's episode, in today's podcast, I just wanted to shine a light on this new way to think about failure. But as I said, your mistakes are really valuable tools. So we'll come back to this idea and I will help you kind of use your mistakes and study your mistakes to get one step closer to your goal, because it's a really powerful way to make progress that's personal to you, that's relevant to you. So that's it for today. If you've got any questions or if you've got any comment, I would love to find out and to hear about your own experience. So feel free to get in touch. And so I wish you a beautiful week, full of mistakes and full of failures. I will catch up with you next week. And as always, keep learning, keep growing, and keep it quirky. Allez, à très vite. Salut.